Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newcastle City Council regular meeting for October 7th. The time is 7 o'clock. I'm Mayor Clark presiding. This meeting is being recorded and it is also being broadcast live on our YouTube channel. A reminder that before we start, if you'd like to publicly comment, there are 3 sheets tonight. There's the first and second normal public comment, but there's also a public hearing on our budget. So that is a separate sign up over there. At this point, please rise and join us in the flag salute. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Burford.
Here.
Councilmember Sherlock. Here. Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Quigg.
Here.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lacotia. Here. And Mayor Clark.
Here.
All here, Mayor.
Thank you. Next up is our agenda approval. Are there any desired changes or alterations to tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, show the agenda approved as written. Next up is our first public comment period. This is the regular public comment, not the public hearing. Do we have anybody signed up, City Clerk? So for the public comment, we will, I'll call your name, encourage you to come. Oh, thank you, Councilmember Griffin. City Attorney Chambers. Excuse me, folks. Hold on that. 1 second.
Good evening, everybody. I would just like to remind you that it is election season and state law prohibits any comments that support or oppose a member for an elected position or to oppose or promote a ballot measure. So please avoid speaking on those topics and keep your comments directed towards city business. Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. For public comment, you'll have 3 minutes. Please, when I call you, come to the microphone, state your name and neighborhood, and when the buzzer sounds, we ask you to wrap it up. So first up is Amber Elam. Amber?
Oops. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I had a question on the buffer zone and what the status is. I haven't heard much of it lately, and I live in China Creek, by the way, and I have a lot of neighbors asking about that. I'm on the HOA there, and there's a lot of people that did receive the letter, and so they're looking for what the new status is. Is there more letters going out? What's happening with that? Will there be information going out soon?
Well, normally we don't do question and answer at the public comment, but for the next step, I don't know, honestly. We'll have to get back to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that was the only one signed up. Do we have anybody online? Okay. First public comment is concluded. Next up tonight, we have a ceremonial presentation, and the Deputy Mayor will take over from here.
Thank you. Good evening. Today we do the proclamation. October is a very auspicious month for us Hindus. So here's our proclamation. Whereas Hinduism is one of the world's oldest and most widely practiced religions with a rich culture, spiritual and philosophical tradition that has inspired millions of people across the globe. And whereas Hindu Americans contribute significantly to the culture, economic, academic, and civic life of communities throughout the United States, including here in the city of Newcastle. And whereas the month of October is recognized by communities and organizations across the nation as Hindu Heritage Month, a time to honor the history, traditions, values, and contributions of the Hindu community. And whereas celebrating Hindu Heritage Month reflects the city of Newcastle's values of diversity, inclusion, and respect, and affirms the city's commitment to honoring the culture, heritage of its residents. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Newcastle, Washington, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2025 as Hindu Heritage Month in the city of Newcastle, and I encourage all residents to recognize, honor, and celebrate the many contributions of the Hindu community to our city, our state, and our nation. Thank you. I would like to call upon Anu Iyer, and you can come and receive the proclamation.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next up is council comment. I'll start with Councilmember Sherlock. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't really have anything prepared, but I did just want to say I really appreciate everybody who came out for the town hall last week. I thought it was really educational. I hope that you all thought so as well. And I just want to thank City Manager Pingle and Director Chambers for doing a great job of kind of just giving a high-level budget explainer. That can be hard to do. So if anyone still has questions, please don't hesitate to reach out because I'm sure we have lots of answers for your questions. So thank you all for coming.
Councilmember Burford.
Good evening, everyone. I want to echo Council Member Sherlock said. I was so glad to see so many people. It was a great turnout at our Newcastle Town Hall. And thank you for the great questions and the tips and sharing your ideas and feedback. And I also want to thank our city, manager, Pingo, and the entire team for preparing such a successful town hall. Thank you. And also, I want to congratulate the proclamation and the beautiful and also dedicated Indian Hindi community. And thank you. And Newcastle is really about inclusion and welcoming everybody in our community. Thank you for your contribution and such an integral part in our community. And also, talking about the special October, yesterday was the Mid-Autumn Festival, and it's such a significant holiday in Chinese-speaking world and several Asian countries. I hope for the families in our Newcastle who celebrated, you had a wonderful time for family reunion and togetherness, and enjoyed a beautiful super moon last night in particular. I'm sure everybody, if you had the opportunity to enjoy the moon, it was just phenomenal. And also savored a variety of mooncakes, AKA is a moon festival, celebrate harvest and togetherness and unity. I wish everyone a brighter year ahead. And I think also I'd like to take this moment because I was not at the council meeting last time due to my family emergency. I want to take this moment to share that our former council member, Carol Simpson, and her husband recently moved. They no longer live in Newcastle. I really want to share that my deepest appreciation for former council member Simpson's dedication and the years of public service and contribution to the city of Newcastle. And I wish Carol and her husband John the very best. And once a Newcastle resident, also Newcastle is always your home and community. So welcome back anytime, Carol and John. Thank you. So it's just my appreciation. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to all the folks that are here for Hindu Heritage Month. I really appreciate you coming out and joining us for this. I'm glad we could celebrate all of you. Thank you to folks that came out for the town hall to talk budget. I think we had some great questions and great engagement there, and I appreciate those folks. I just really quick, I was really honored last Friday at Hazen High School's homecoming to be a part of a really special ceremony for two athletes, Vina Nguyen and Kenyon Andrews. Vina was a state champion for her wrestling weight class and took 7th in the nation in her weight class, as well as Kenyon's a fantastic hurdler who's a 2-time state champ and also, I believe, like head leading his event in the Junior Olympics too. So just two super talented athletes, some of the most I've seen at Hazen history. So it was great to be a part of that event and present them with awards, and go Mariners.
Councilmember Quigg.
I'm going to echo what Son said about Carol Simpson. Carol leaving here is like Norm leaving Cheers. She, when I joined the Planning Commission, took me on a drive of the whole city, give me a tour of everything, and she's been at that lectern more than darn near anybody on this planet. So, Carol, happy trails. We'll miss you a lot. Thanks for everything you did.
Councilmember Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I want to take this time to welcome you folks out there. It's nice to have people come to the meeting and learn about what's going on in the city. I appreciate your being here. Thank you for coming.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you to the council for letting us, celebrate Hindu Heritage Month. And as I said, October is a very auspicious month for us. October 20th is our biggest event, Diwali, and I know the library celebrates it. So anybody who, our Newcastle residents go to our Newcastle library, there's a lot of celebration that happens there. Thank you and enjoy the evening.
Okay, thank you. Mayor comment, I only have one, is a reminder that in about a month we have Veterans Day. So last year I got sick and I couldn't make it to Veterans Day, so please come on down. We'll be having more announcements as we get closer. All right, next up is council committees. Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. The Finance didn't work. The Finance Committee met on September 22nd, and Maria brought the August financial statement snapshot. She did a very excellent job in doing that. The general fund income was a little under budget, and the general fund expenditures were also under budget, so that puts us in a much better position. Director Chambers brought the report on investment revenue, which remains strong. And we also, on the 22nd, received the state auditors come in and told us that we had passed the audit. They did an excellent job with our numbers, and they were pleased with what we were doing. Thank you, Chamber and Deputy Chambers and the rest of the staff for your efforts.
Economic and Community Development.
Yeah, we are canceled this month.
Okay. Any regional committees? Okay. Seeing none. City Manager report. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. A couple of things. First off, I wanted to call everyone's attention to Pumpkins in the Park. Pumpkins are in the park. The event, you can find information on it from the city's website. It should be one of the main things on the scroll on the front page. Just for everyone's benefit, we received 27 applications for the Public Works Director position. We'll be doing semifinal interviews with 8 of them next week. I would love to get it down to more like 3 for final interviews to bring them in, and we'll see how that goes next week. Also, we received 8 police chief applications, and so, like I explained at the town hall, that primarily comes from, that has to be a King County Sheriff's Office sergeant. And so, to contrast, when Chief Halk left and we hired Chief Kajihiro, I got 2 applications for that. And so we're excited to have a little bigger pool for people that want to come be the chief in Newcastle. And then if you're okay with it, Mayor, I'd love to hand it off to Erin and she can respond to the critical areas question.
Hello, thank you. I just wanted to say the critical areas ordinance, we anticipate this taking a little bit longer. We'd like to have a decision by February because it's a requirement for many of the state grants, and our first grants that I'm aware of are due in March. The critical area buffers for wetlands are not proposed to change. The streams, we are working on getting a contract in place to have a consultant come in and help us write our best available science for the city to talk about, so that we potentially could move into a departure, so that we could have a departure from the state's best available science. Basically meaning the city would pursue probably a smaller buffer for the streams. Still trying to work in tandem with the state. But at this point, it's a little bit up in the air. But again, we're going to take a little more time and we're going to work with a specialized consultant on this.
Okay, thank you. Questions for the city manager? Go ahead, Councilmember Cook.
I have a question for Director Fitzgibbons. So you said that, I heard you say the buffers are going to shrink, or I'm sorry, can you just restate what you said? Because there were hundreds of letters that went out, but so that means the people that got letters that shouldn't have got letters might get follow-up letters?
Absolutely. So we've had we requested that anybody who got letters who were interested in staying informed reach out to us. And so we have a mailing list. Planning Commission has suggested we also send out a new letter to everybody when the time is right. But the recommended buffer, this is kind of getting ahead of us, but the recommended buffer is 100 feet for non-fish bearing streams at minimum. And for some people right now, their minimum buffer is 25 feet. So increasing it by 75 feet feels like quite a bit to the Planning Commission and staff. So, insofar as we're able to work to integrate best available science from the state, but also prepare a departure is a deviation, or however else you want to say it, from what the state's recommending. We would like to try to pursue that.
That's perfect. That's just what I was hoping you would say. I would like to make sure we talk about it at the next council meeting, because this is something I'm hearing a lot about, is people saying, I got a letter, what's the story? But if we're going to send follow-up letters and keep people informed, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions for the city manager? You have any other comments?
If I can just comment real quick on
Please.
Councilmember Quay's question. So, the council is at liberty to do that. I would recommend that while this question remains with the Planning Commission, that it remains with the Planning Commission, and then once they make a recommendation to the council, we'll have all of those discussions. But we can do the same outreach to the community through the Planning Commission at the stage they're at with it as we can if it comes to a city council.
Okay. Thank you, city manager. Next up is the consent agenda. Are there any desired changes or alterations to tonight's consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, show the consent agenda approved as written. Next up is our first public hearing. This is our first public hearing on the 2026 budget. So we will open the public hearing at 7:19. For members of the council, this is a public hearing. This evening we have Finance Director Chambers to give us a short overview. At the conclusion of the overview, she will be available for questions or comments. After that, we will take public testimony. So a reminder at this point, if you'd like to comment, please, you have a chance to still go sign up. If you are here to address the council, it is not necessary that you be a proponent or opponent. Just come forward and give your name and address. If your comments are in the form of a question, the question will be so noted and answered at the conclusion of the public hearing testimony. Then we will have final comments by council members. Okay, at this point, Director Chambers will give us an overview.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So as the agenda bill states in our packet, the total budget appropriation, and again, to be specific, this is for expenditures only. It does not include ending fund balance, which we are now including in our total budget number. But the 2026 preliminary expenditure total is $27,593,714. The operating portion of this is $16,726,367. The capital portion is $6,356,953. The debt service portion is $469,447. And then we have transfers between the funds. All included are $3,640,947. And then other financing uses, which is what we use for routing developer deposits in and out of the city, is $400,000. So at this time, we'll just introduce those numbers. The budget book has been posted as of last Friday, and we are happy to take any comments and questions at this time.
Are there questions from the council for Director Chambers? Okay. Seeing none, City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to speak or ask questions? Two, okay. Thank you. Okay, we have two people to come up. We'll just ask you to come on up, state your name and neighborhood, and state your comments or questions. So first up is Gary Campen. Come on up, Gary.
Gary Campen, 12601 Southeast 75th Place, Newcastle. I'm speaking on behalf of Newcastle Trails. But before that, I do applaud those comments about Carol Simpson. She made an enormous contribution to the city, and her service on the council is just the tip of a very large iceberg. So hats off to Carol. Tonight, I asked the council to put the Lakeborn Promenade in the CIP budget starting in 2026. There's $1 million small city grant available in early 2026 with points for parks, trails, and water access. A perfect fit. The promenade will expand Lakeborn Park North, double the accessible waterfront, and complete the Lakeborn Trail around the lake. The promenade appears in the 2016 Park Master Plan, where it scored high in public surveys. Its main feature is an ADA accessible park path extending north along the east shore from the boardwalk almost to the Aegis Retirement Home. Another key feature is landscaping, including a wall of sound-blocking conifers along Coal Creek Parkway. Possible amenities include a water pavilion and a view pavilion near Aegis. These could be simple prefabricated structures like the gazebo in Donegal Park, or something more elaborate. And with one grant in hand, other grants or private donations will be possible. I think the sky is the limit here. We can do great things with our city and with our park. Many park facilities target specific groups like tennis players or concert goers, but the promenade will be usable by all residents every day, dawn to dusk. It's close to downtown, and with a great benefit cost ratio, that should help with grants. The new Lakeborn Trail will have room for public art along the promenade and elsewhere. It already includes historic sites like the cemetery. It could become a magnet for visitors with benefits to local commerce. In the past, Newcastle Trails has hosted Volksmarches. One trail walk brought over 200 visitors downtown, and that was before our trail system really got going. I hope the city will give the promenade high priority and pursue every avenue for funding. The future is uncertain. We've waited 30 years to complete our Central Park. Now we should act. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Next up, Peggy Price. Come on up, Peggy.
Peggy Price from Windtree. This is basically on the same subject, but I wanted to say that when the prior comp plan was completed, we were assured by the city manager and the public works director then that the priority order in the comp plan isn't the final word, because projects could be accomplished as funding could be allocated. Different things could be funded prior or not quite so fast. And a lot of projects have been completed since. And this $1 million RCO grant is just tailor-made for this project going up the east side of the lake. It's, you know, as Gary said, it's going to be for lake access, that works, trail, park, they all fit. And if we have hit all three and we're a small city and we don't have matching funds, it's absolutely perfect for us. And you don't get funds without matching funds very often. That grant is only offered about every 2 years, and it may or may not be tailored quite as well for our purposes. So I think we ought to jump on it if we're going to be able to do this. All we need for funding for 2026 is enough to apply for the grant. We wouldn't have to do it yet. We wouldn't have to build the trail the same year we get the grant, but we'd have to apply for the grant in 2026, early 2026. Let's see. Well, yeah, I think the investment would be substantial there. It's probably well worth doing, and if we jump on it, that could save the city $1 million. Thanks.
Thank you, Peggy. City Clerk, has anybody signed up online for the public hearing? Okay. The public comment portion of the public hearing is concluded. Any final comments or by the council? Any council member have a comment or question? Okay. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed at 7:27. Thank you, everybody. Okay, moving on in our agenda tonight, we have no unfinished business. And by the way, the numbers that the director read are in your agenda package tonight, so you can go see those numbers. They're in there for you. Next up is general business. We have item 11.1, adoption of resolution funding for new permitting software. This is actually a rather unfinished business, but it's on the general business for revisit. City manager, who's going to lead us in this one? Director Fitzgibbons.
Good evening. Thank you. So at the end of this item at the last September meeting, we had a number of questions that staff were unable to answer. I'll just quickly go through some of those answers that we found and then open it up for comment or questions from council. OpenGov was founded in 2012 and it serves over 2,000 municipalities in the country. They partner with over 50 agencies in the state, including the City of Seattle, King County Library, cities of Issaquah, Duval, and Mill Creek. The 5% rate is all that we will see for the annual increase, and there was no discount available. They did note at OpenGov that the staff had already negotiated a 39% discount, which is the highest discount that they offer any client. What happens at the end of the 3-year contract was a question. It simply continues with the 5% annual increase. We see this as well with our other contract that's already with OpenGov for Cartograph. Is there potential discount for our small number of users? OpenGov already works on a budget band scenario, so rather than a user count, they work on what's the operating budget of the city, basically. How many applicants do we estimate will pay by credit cards? While we don't have an estimate exactly how many, I would say that most will pay electronically if they can. We have a lot of applicants coming from outside of the area, and they often ask if there's an electronic means of payment. How many applications do we actually get per year? We, on average, for the last 5 years, have received 230 building permits, 17 land use permits, and 5 engineering permit applications per year. How much staff time could we save? Approximately, we think 10 to 15 hours per week. This is based on the number of times a permit is routed within a year. We route and to give you, in the last year, we've routed permits 580 times. So that we think this could save 6 to 10 hours of staff time per week on just routing permits, and the other portion of the time would be 4 to 5 hours, which would just be for the clarifying how to use the permit software, coordinating inspection requests and inspection notices with applicants, and creating certificates of occupancy, not applicancy. Which fund would this come from? The general fund is still the answer. However, any questions regarding that can be directed to Director Chambers. Can we have a data visualization that was included in the agenda memo or agenda bill, but I can't pull it up if we'd like to see that. And then there was also a question about MBP versus OpenGov contracts in terms of increases, and we just wanted to clarify that the way that MBP works is that it's part of a nonprofit organization runs it, and there's a cost sharing amongst the 12 or so different organizations that use it. And this works the same way for anything that we go into with the East City Gov Alliance. And so when a jurisdiction drops out, then the administrative cost of that then splits into larger pieces of that cost-sharing pie. And we have seen this happen, and it's not very predictable, obviously. So the OpenGov would just be limited to that 5% annual increase rather than hoping that other jurisdictions stay in the pool, basically. That's my quick wrap-up from last time. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Councilmember Quigg, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Fitzgibbons, for coming back with the answers to those questions. These questions, I love this idea. This is like the staff has an old hammer and we got to replace with a new hammer, right? Definitely got to get a new hammer. You guys are using old hammers. The question I have is it the right hammer and is it the right cost? And the question I asked about the size of the hammer, the size of the cost was because as near as I can tell, large agencies like, Seattle versus Newcastle, if we're paying the same that Seattle's paying and we've only got 230 building permits, then can you kind of double click into your answer on that? You said that it's based on the budget of the city. So we're not paying what Seattle pays, obviously. How do they distinguish between what they would charge New York City and what they would charge Newcastle City?
So it sounds like they have budget bands. So for Newcastle, their answer was the 20 to 40 million budget band is what we fall into. And then the pricing reflects that band plus the 39% discount that we negotiated with them, based on the fact that we were looking at other options, the fact that we're already a current partner. So.
Okay. Did you go ahead?
I'm just curious, generally softwares have the prices based on user-based. It's all user, and 20 to 40 is a big range. I mean, like you're doubling the budget. So I'm just curious how they come up with that number, like 39% discount, because we are on the lower side of the 20 to 40 million, not. So would they charge somebody the same 20 million and the same 40 million? That's a huge range. I'm just worried that generally it's user-based, like number of users. That's how the softwares work. But I understand we need this, but I'm just curious about that.
In our conversations, we didn't go into depth about how with the math behind the budget bands. I can say that the other software companies that I reached out to, also because of their unlimited users, they were either based on, well, again, something that I wasn't sure of, or they were based on how many permits we got per year, which is, again, similar to, which is a lot more similar to MVP, and I didn't think that would be the right route to go.
And And you said it auto renews at the end of the 3-year period. Does it auto renew for a full three more years? Is that what it would do, or is it an annual basis after the expiration of the initial term?
My understanding is it's a 3-year contract.
Okay, so after the first 3 years, we buy another 3 years, we buy another 3 years. And so, and we don't have a termination, right? Like if they all of a sudden did a bad job on day one of the third term, we're stuck. Is that, we're not tied into the full 3 years, we have a termination, right?
We do.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Councilor Charbonneau.
Thank you. I move adoption of Resolution 2025-1058, approving a contract with OpenGov Incorporated as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 2025-1058, approving a contract with OpenGov Inc. as presented. Would you like to speak to that, Councilor Charbonneau?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I think I would direct folks to Exhibit 1, which I appreciate staff putting together, as well as this whole really comprehensive process. So I think it, very clearly, if we were to do nothing and continue with our same permitting process, it's $473,000 of cost to us as a city from 2025 to 2028, versus going forward with this system is $228,000 cost towards us during that same span. So not only is making this move a $245,000 cost saving over that span, it also saves 10 to 15 hours of staff time. I think really critically too, respecting our staff and not having them do, this is busy work. A lot of this, it sounds like, based on what y'all are describing, to handle these permitting. So it's giving y'all times back for grants, for different projects you're working on, especially because we already have, a very lean staff. It scales with the size of different budgets. I think it's just, it has a ton of other perks as well. And I think this is just good local government. I think this is just good work by the staff in bringing this forward. I think this is a win on a lot of levels. And I think we get a lot of folks ask us, what are we doing to save money? What are we doing to save money? Things like this are objectively saving us money and helping us run more efficient. So I'd like to commend staff for that.
Councilman Sherlock.
I'll just agree with Councilmember Charbonneau.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to adopt Resolution 2025-1058, approving a contract with OpenGov Inc. as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Director Fitzgibbons. Appreciate that. Okay, next up is item 11.2, adoption of ordinance approving the 2025 zoning map. So Director Fitzgibbons, you're on again.
Thank you. Sorry, we need to pull up my presentation here. It's a pretty visual. There it is. Presentations. Oh, here. Okay. Where's the full screen? All right. Can everyone see share? All right. You would know I do this once a month. That's weird. Can you see it on the screen above here? No. It's a very nice picture. All right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to try to keep this brief, and let the council members ask questions of me afterwards. So, as you all know, in March of this year, we adopted a new comprehensive plan. As part of that process, we are supposed to update our zoning map to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And so it's hard, it may be hard to see on the screen, but you can see two sort of different colors of yellow here. This is the neighborhood residential, which really encompasses most of the city. And then The rest is this low-density residential. And the difference between a future land use map and the zoning map is that the future land use map is very general in its purpose. It just sort of says, this is what we vision here. You figure out the zoning separately. This is our existing zoning map. It was last adopted in 2019. You can see that there are some neighborhoods, especially this one here, that look like other neighborhoods but have this what's called R1 zoning, which is very low density residential. And since this map was adopted, we had the Dashwood neighborhood built, which is number 2 here. We have we put forth considerations for the Porter Jensen Jewelry site, which I'll discuss, and then also separating out the uses between the golf course and the city's limited open space. So here's the proposed zoning map. You can see how that changes just a little bit between the two. We can come back to this if anyone has questions. Okay, so the Highlands neighborhood. It was built in the 90s. It's zoned R1 now, and the lots are about a quarter of the size of other lots that are in R1 zoning, and they are not encumbered with the same kind of critical areas. Over time, adjustments that were made in the zoning code were accidentally changed so that the R1 zone for the Highlands meant that they weren't able to build additional decks or expand on their space because the allowed buildable area in an R1 zone is like 10% of their lot, whereas in an R4 zone, it's like 35%. So basically by changing this from R1 to R4, it just creates parity with other similar neighborhoods in the city. And we did talk to the HOA and they were in favor of this. You can see that there's an R4 zone right here next to it, and there will be a consistent R4 zone at the Highlands now, if this is indeed adopted. Similarly, the Dashwood neighborhood, which was just finished its construction, it was built across 2 different zones. There's been no zoning update, however, and it's built across R1 and R4 zones. So as it has been built across 2 zones in order to create parity for these more neighborhood residential, we built subdivisions in the city. We're proposing to change this to R4 as well. 6401 Lake Washington Boulevard, also known as the Porter Jensen Jewelry site. It is zoned R6, which is single family home or duplex now with the state laws. It's called Neighborhood Hub in the comprehensive plan. It's right next to the Shell gas station across the street. This is a 100-year-old building, small mixed-use site. It's got 2 apartments on it and then this retail site. It also has deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed. However, if the property owner tries to address those, he'll have to tear down the entire building and rebuild it because the value of the building is low enough that the repairs would hit our threshold for bringing a non-conforming use into conforming status, basically. Looking at this site and looking at the comprehensive plan, and after talking to the property owner, who is in favor of this change, it seems like that it is appropriate for the use to remain. The Planning Commission did recommend this. So you see that on the ordinance for tonight. The last one is the city open space and the limited open space. Essentially what has happened here is that the golf course site over time started allowing motel, hotel uses, kind of more of like a play and stay recreation. They haven't built a boutique hotel, however, it has been discussed over time. Who knows if it'll ever happen. But because it was zoned the same as the city's property, including a historic cemetery, May Creek Park, which includes fish-bearing streams and steep slopes, and of course Lake Bourne Park, which everybody loves and uses for its amenities, it didn't seem that the 2 uses were really the zone really felt the same anymore in terms of their description. So it was proposed to change it so that the limited open space zone would remain in the light green where the golf course is, and the city's open space would become COS, which is city open space. The uses changed a little bit in the code. While the limited open space or the golf course still allows hotel and motel and a destination resort, a sporting goods store, we took that out of the public areas of the city's open space, but it does allow for the historical uses, a library or museum, if the city would ever want to build those or even rezone our parks, such as the new Lee Bima Park, as also as city open space, which we're not proposing now, but Planning Commission did discuss. Anyway, we had 3 public comments. There was a concern from the owner of 6401 Lake Washington Boulevard. Being able to actually reuse the site, there's a 20-foot setback required next to residential, single-family residential. These concerns can be addressed next year as we go over the downtown standards, but it's not quite an issue for a zoning map update. Concerning about, there was a concern about who instigated these zoning changes, why the city was proposing these when other property owners have had denials, and questions about what uses should be in the limited open space versus city open space designation. And while staff had noticed that these sites and these locations were either split zoned or, again, with Highlands, they were having issues with being able to improve their properties. That's how they got initiated, but there were several conversations at Planning Commission, and we're really trying not to impede, especially with the housing issues that are out there, people from being able to continue to develop their own properties. A lot of people are landlocked these days. Another thing that was noted that was really interesting and pointed out to us was that this little parcel here is actually owned by the City of Bellevue Parks and Rec. So we will reach out to them separately, and you may see another map update next year to talk about this little parcel. But as for now, it remains as it is, but I did, because it was part of the comments, I did want to share. So anyway, this was the recommended action from the Planning Commission. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Quigg.
Is there any correlation between the critical area ordinance issue and this zoning map?
I wouldn't say the zoning map per se. I think, and the correlation that especially Planning Commission has also picked up on is the non-conforming standards. We have a very broad-based, a very broad-based non-conforming code. It basically is, it's based on the value of the improvement, and that's it. There's no other, but the zoning map just sort of says what can be built there. Yeah, but the underlying non-conforming ordinance is probably part of the issue. Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I think the Porter Jensen jeweler site, making that mixed use makes a ton of sense and gives owner flexibility to the owner there. I think it's a great change. And then I had questions about 2 that are in our agenda packet but are not in the presentation. So we were presented with 8 different sort of sites that were covered here, and therefore brought forward. So, number 1 being the May Valley Road, which is the number 3 in our packet. So it says that the lots are held to R1, but R4 would give it more flexibility because there's a lot of this is on May Valley Road for folks. There's a lot of critical areas there. And it says that we didn't, it might behoove us to make it R4, but staff didn't move forward with that suggestion because we didn't get, we got feedback from 2 property owners, it sounds like, but it's 8 properties in total. So I guess I'm just I'm curious, like, is it realistic to expect to get more feedback than that to move forward with this change when it could, it could help the property owners if we change it to R4 with the setbacks and all that. I think, I think 2 out of 8 is not bad given the sort of amount of folks that normally get back to us. So.
That's a good point. I guess Planning Commission, and I understand, and I supported this as well as much as staff can. They didn't want to rezone properties where they felt either they were uninformed or they were against it. And the only really loud voice we heard was against it. And the other person just asked for information. And after explaining to them, I didn't hear back. So it's kind of left up in the air, and so the decision was not to recommend a change at this time. However, that doesn't mean that in the future, if it seems like a good idea, we couldn't pursue it again.
I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems a little benign because it wouldn't change any of the existing properties beyond just reducing the setback requirements, so giving them more flexibility with what they do with their property they already own, so. And then the other question I had was about number 7. So this is by the Regency over on right where Cold Creek Parkway golf course, our golf club road meet. It said that there was a 2005 zoning change to that site, but that it was not captured. And then there was another change in the 2015 comp plan. I'm kind of unclear on like what the current status. What is that currently zoned?
It is currently zoned R24, so it's
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's subdivided like is being suggested. It would be what Planning Commission hoped for in the agenda packet.
Actually, yes. I have reached out with Arch, and I'm gathering property information together for them on a few sites after
Okay.
this. The Planning Commission did some good sleuthing.
Awesome. Okay, I appreciate that because that was Planning Commission said that was a potential place for affordable housing development. So I wanted to just get the status. That I appreciate you working on that, and that answers my question.
Any other questions? Anybody want to make a motion? Go ahead.
I move adoption of ordinance 2025-673, approving the 2025 zoning map as presented.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance 2025-673, approving the 2025 zoning map. Councilmember Sherlock, do you want to say anything?
I'm just in favor of moving forward with this, and I appreciate the Planning Commission's work and Director Fitzgibbons and your staff, so thank you all.
Deputy Mayor, you want nothing? Okay. Motion is to adopt ordinance 2025-673, approving the 2025 zoning map as presented. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Director Fitzgibbons. Thank you very much. Okay, the next up on our agenda tonight is item 11.3, another budget study session regarding operating funds. Who will lead this? City Manager? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, again, Council. Just as we get going, just want to, since we do this once a year, at least for the last 3 years, I just wanted to kind of review how we've done this, so that if there's questions, we can address those up front. So, and just based on questions I got after the process last year. So what you'll see as we go through, when we get into the changes from the current year budget to the 2026 preliminary budget, what's presented is the major changes. So the major deviations from current year to next year is what we'll go through for the most part. And then as the city council asks for changes to line items or changes to the budget, or as we receive updated, so most of the time we'll get our final property tax estimate from King County middle of October. And so we'll make those adjustments as they come, and we'll put out a memo after each one of these budget study sessions, and for the next one, we'll take whatever changes the council asks for, along with changes that come along with additional information, and we'll put that in a memo to document what are the changes being made to the preliminary budget? Because most of the time, those changes are fairly limited, where we're changing a few line items at a time rather than, a ton to where we would want to make some kind of an adjustment to what's online. We'll save making any adjustments to the budget online until we have a final budget, because it's much easier to memorialize those adjustments as we go along. And then I just wanted to make clear that as we go through and talk through the changes from current year to next, that's what those changes are. They're not changes to the preliminary budget.
Where will those memos live for the public to see?
So they'll be online, so they'll be in the document center.
In the document center, but not with the budget book, so it'll be a separate,
Right.
okay, thank you.
All right. So, as usual, we'll start off just with salaries and benefits adjustments, because those affect all of the funds, and then we'll get into the general fund more specifically. So major changes this year, adding 0.2 FTEs to the staffing. Essentially, that's taking our events and rec coordinator from a 32-hour employee to full-time. 2.7% is the COLA for non-represented and union employees. That's the CPI, which we use as a guide for that. And then there's an 8% increase to health benefits per AWC. And so those are the major adjustments in the budget. I like to just kind of always summarize our salary and benefits impacts. And so I put it in there a couple of ways on the slide just so that you can look at it however you want. So looking at total salary changes from 25 to 26, the total in the budget is an increase of $32,250. The general fund change is $35,500. And so what that means is that there's a decrease in overall in other budgets. Primarily that's because there's a fairly large decrease in the Surface Water Management Fund, because in hiring a new public works director, we won't start them maxed out. We'll start them mid-range, or depending on what they bring to the table. And so where the previous public works director was maxed out, there's savings there. And so you can look at it as general fund salaries versus the rest of the budget. Then the next one is total benefits change from 25 to 26. There's a decrease in the general fund of $53,100 and an overall decrease in benefits of $80,850. The driver for that is the decrease in the employer PERS rate. In the legislature this year, the state decided to decrease the employer PERS rate, and so we have that savings. And then I just put looking at it a different way, general fund salary and benefits total, there's a decrease of $17,600, and then total budget salary and benefits change is $48,600, a decrease of $48,600.
Question, City Manager?
Yep.
Just have a quick question on the previous slide. So 2.7% COLA, is there like a merit increase also, or?
Yes, so last year, the city council changed the compensation system to a step system rather than a merit system. And so employees that are eligible for a step will get a step. And employees that are maxed out won't get a step. Each step is 3%.
3%, okay. So total would be like 5.7%.
Right, depending on the employer. We have a lot of employees maxed out.
Okay.
Any others? All right. So as usual, we like to go through our main revenue sources, which is property tax, sales tax, and development fees. And so I'm going to buzz through this, and if there's questions, would love to go through them. We just like to show how property tax works briefly, and then what actual numbers tend to look like. And so this year, the 1% allowed increase in revenue equals $64,857. The new construction amount currently in the preliminary budget is $75,580. What we've received so far from King County, I think, would change that to about $77,000. But we anticipate that that'll go up as we get updated new construction estimates from King County. Last year, our new construction property tax increase was like $185,000, and we've had quite a bit of activity since then. We anticipate that that'll go up from $75,000. Assuming the 1% increase, our 2026 levy rate estimate is $1.04 per thousand, where this year our levy rate is $1.09 per thousand assessed value. And so with the 1% revenue limitation, Lindsay did a really good job Director Chambers did a really good job at the town hall of kind of walking through this next part, and so I won't spend too much time on it. But Newcastle has 6 different taxing districts depending on where you're at and whether you're in which school district you're in and whether you're in Sound Transit's taxing district or not. So we try to take a typical residence as an example. So taking a typical residence, you'd be paying $8.94 per thousand total in your property taxes to the city of Newcastle, or overall. The Newcastle share of that for 2025 would be that $1.09 that we talked about earlier. And so what we get of your property taxes, what the city of Newcastle brings in, is just over 12% on that typical home of total property taxes collected. And so the table just shows some history where a lot of what you end up paying on that 1% or just as property taxes change from year to year really depends on how properties overall are assessed in the city. And that's a function that King County carries out, that we have the King County assessor. And so with that overall 1% allowed increase, when residential properties increased at a higher rate than commercial properties, your residential rate is going to climb while commercial rates either drop or stay the same. And when that's the inverse happens. And so you can see that happening in the table. So if you look at the bottom 2 rows there, in 2022, the city took the 1% allowed increase, and on that typical home, their increase just on City of Newcastle property taxes was almost $43. The next year, we took what we had in the bank plus the 1%, and the increase was only $26.32 because of how that played out, because of how that is assessed value played out. And then the next year, we took the 1%, and if you had a single-family home in the city, your property tax to the City of Newcastle went down, even though we took the 1%. And then in last year, we banked the 1%, but you still saw an increase in your taxes because of how that assessed value played out. And so looking at the 2026 estimate, assuming the 1%, you're looking at the $140 because residential values really bumped up for 2026 for assessed value. Any questions on that? Okay.
Is there anything that Director Chambers you'd like to add, because this is being recorded and the town hall was not, and so if there's anything, maybe not, I just want to give you that opportunity.
I think one of the intentions for the town hall presentation was to show we have a lot of discussion about the 1% increase, and sometimes there's some confusion about what that actually amounts to. And so as City Manager Pinkel did a great job explaining, it's just that city portion, that 12% of the residents' property taxes. And again, a lot of this variance is due to the assessor's office, their valuation of the properties. It's not the amount we decide to take or levy has a lot less influence over the actual dollars that people are paying in their property taxes versus what King County is assessing at. And then in addition, we have the King County and the school funds that are also affecting the total property tax dollars.
All right, sales tax. So this just provides some history. So one of the things that was great going into COVID that has helped us a lot was online sales tax. And so essentially if you live in the city of Newcastle and you order something online, the sales tax goes to the city of Newcastle rather than if you went to Factoria and bought stuff in Factoria where that sales tax would go to Bellevue. And so this just breaks down historic sales tax. Maybe of particular interest is the construction sales tax. You can see how that kind of ebbs and flows. And you can see when construction was high in the city and when it dipped back down in 2025 so far, it's really strong. And so that's just to give you a sense of the history of our total sales tax.
I have a question regarding the sales tax based on Newcastle address. Some Newcastle homes, we share the same zip code as Renton. My question is, so how can we make sure that we spend, money in Newcastle, we use our Newcastle address, but the zip code is the same as Renton. I heard some conversation before, kind of not very sure whether Newcastle receive the sales tax.
Yeah, so Director Chambers is welcome to weigh in if she has better details, but what we receive is not based on our zip code. It's based on our tax code, which so it'll be based on the city that we're in, and that city is associated with a tax code for sales tax.
Doesn't the 4 digits after the zip code take care of getting it into the Newcastle like it should be?
I don't know the answer to that.
It does. That's what causes you to, whenever you order it online, you put in your zip code, plus you need to put in your 4 digits following it. That signifies that it is Newcastle, yes.
I think it takes the whole address into consideration, and most major e-commerce vendors are going to have a sales tax software that they use that has that nationwide data already incorporated into it. So when you put in your address, regardless of what the zip code is, it's going off of that full location to be able to pinpoint it to the tax code, like City Manager Finkel said.
Okay, and then the next slide just gives you a sense of where we're at today based on budget. And it's really strong. So we're in you'll notice for the 2026 budget, we'll get to the revenue changes, but with how strong sales tax has been in the current year as well as last year, we're increasing our sales tax projection for next year. Then looking at development fees, just looking at it several different ways with our major line items, with permits totaling a little over $550,000. Plan check fees is down as far as the projection at $275,000, and then all the other development fees at $155,000. And so really what we're looking at when we are trying to nail down those numbers is just the current environment and what's coming up. And so as far as our current reality, permitting and construction timeframes are not super predictable. We'll have permits come in and then somebody will stop. So for example, the condos that were supposed to go in by the library, those have been on hold for several years just because interest rates started to climb and they couldn't get funding. And so we've received a lot of development revenue on that property that then has just been sitting. And so we haven't had a whole lot of expenditures based on that property because they haven't moved forward. And so it's really easy to get into the mode of thinking, okay, development expenditures equals development revenue or the other way around, but they don't exactly align in real time. Because people will pay up front and then we pay the expenditures out for permit review and the things that go into those expenditures. It's not dollars in and dollars out immediately, and so it's something to keep in mind. And then just with bringing our development revenue down a touch is just based on, we have a lot of building going on right now, and we have much less on the horizon. And so we have much more moderate short-term potential with what's coming in and just what's been built out in the city of Newcastle. We don't have any large track areas left to build 40 homes or to build 100 homes or to build 30 homes at once.
Could you please remind us what PUDs stand for? Thank you.
Yep, that's planned unit developments. And so looking at beyond 26 and 27, what we do have lots of area for in the city of Newcastle is planned unit developments. And so that's like 8 units, 10 units, smaller developments that for the most part, those types of developments have to comply with the code. We don't negotiate a development agreement with them or anything like that. They're smaller and they have to comply with what we have in the code. They don't get to deviate through a development agreement. Okay. And so again, just showing some history, and really all that shows is kind of the ebb and flow of building and permits as we go along. One of the things that you'll notice is we climbed into the last couple of years. We think we kind of peaked in 24 and we'll start to come down a little bit where we'll still be really strong this year, pretty strong next, and then we'll have to take a look at where we're at and what's coming in the door. And this is just actual, or looking at the current year only, budget versus actuals and projected. Really strong. We'll be way above budget this year, which is fantastic. So this is just general fund revenues in all, just broken down into our main categories. Keep going. And so this is what I was talking about earlier. What I like to go through with the council is the main changes from current year budget to the next year budget and why. And so the main one that I just talked about was retail sales tax. That's increased from the current year budget by $60,000. And again, that's based on how we're trending. We expect construction sales tax to continue to be strong going into the next year. And then the same is true as far as the criminal justice sales tax increase. The admissions tax increase is just based on in the current year, this was the first year, and we went live January 1, 2025, but they pay admissions taxes due quarterly, and so for the first quarter, that's due in April, and so we'll get the fourth quarter not until January, and so 2026 will be that first full year of admissions tax. Franchise fees, this is just, they continue to decline bit by bit, just because what we can charge franchise fees for, those services continue to be used less and less. So it'd be like using a landline and cable TV. Business licenses, we increased, at the beginning of this year, we increased the business license fee, and so that reflects that increase. For plan check fees, like I mentioned earlier, we brought that down. Actually, my number's wrong there. It's $275, not $375 is what we budgeted. But brought that down based on what's on the horizon. Sorry, that's a 2, not a 3. Investment interest, we've talked about that a lot. We've been able to make some adjustments in our financial policies to put some money into long-term investments. And so from a budget standpoint, we'll budget 395 where this year we budgeted 300. But really we're keeping that steady. Just from a budgeting standpoint, we're way higher than we were in the current year. Interfund service charges, again, this is based on, really based on what goes into interfund service charges, which is our capital projects, so Transportation Improvement Fund, Parks Improvement Fund, as well as the swim fund and the street fund. And so it really depends on kind of our capital projects and the value of those. As those ebb and flow, then you'll see in each of the funds we go through that are affected by interfund service charges that they'll ebb and flow as well with those projects. Miscellaneous revenue, we brought that down just based on trends and where we're at. That's not a huge increase in revenue. We tie that line item specifically to then the credit card fees that then come out of the finance fund in the miscellaneous line item. And so those match where in the current year we were 75 and 75. We're bringing that down to be more reflective of where we're at, where it'll be 50 in revenue and 50 in expenditures. And then the last one we've talked about as well, that's just the final transfer into the general fund based on our pandemic relief plan as far as the $715,555. And before we move on, any questions on revenues? Okay. So with general fund expenditures, again, just breaking it down by category. Those are just total out the categories. What I want to continue to draw the council's attention to, though, are the categories below. So general government, we define as everything in the general fund except for public safety and parks maintenance and transfers. And so that's the city council fund, city manager, finance, IT, community development, so planning and building, our engineering services, public safety, not public safety, but emergency management. And so that's general government, and we generally have the most control over that, and that's what we've been really trying to drive down over the last couple of years to be more reflective of what we actually need to spend, and kind of trying to change that culture among staff of just spending what we need.
I have a question. So I heard you said regarding public safety, you said actually it's emergency funds, or?
No, I said public safety instead of emergency management as being part of general government.
Okay, thank you.
And then public safety, the big ones there are Bellevue Fire and King County Sheriff's Office, where we control those much less. With the Bellevue Fire contract, we can, we could try to negotiate a lower level of service, or if we wanted to go that way to try to save cost. But we don't have a lot of options with fire. With King County Sheriff's Office, we control our number of officers as far as that. But as far as staying status quo with those two services, we're going to continue to see that rise. And that's what we're fighting. We have the most control over general government. There's much less to try to cut out of that, and we're going to fight that public safety increase. And I put parks maintenance in there simply as a just to see what also goes into those general fund categories. And then the transfer is primarily the transfer to the street fund. And then wanted to just point out where we made some adjustments. So 2023, we were able to use, that was during COVID, and during COVID we were able to use REIT for street maintenance. And so in 2023, the council pulled that money out of being a general fund transfer and made it a REIT fund transfer. 2024 was before we implemented the interfund service charges, and so you see that big jump from 24 to 25, and that's where we implemented interfund service charges. But that transfer will continue to have to come from the general fund to help out the street fund.
The police includes the 12 officers, right? So
Right.
we assume it's always going to be 12 until proven otherwise.
Right. Yep, and we'll hit on those line items and what goes into those. All right. So in the general fund, in the city council fund, the main changes are just simply membership dues, and those are just annual increases for the things that the city has to be a part of. So the Association of Washington Cities, we pay annual dues because we're a city in Washington. Clean Air Agency, there's a lot of different things that go into that number. Arch. And then the facility fee went up also, but facility fees overall, we brought down about $7,000 from 2025. That's what goes towards the facilities fund, but we're holding those fees constant. And so this is just a readjustment of what's getting charged where. And so as we go through each fund, you'll see a facility fee going up or going down, but overall facility fees are down. So city manager fund, down overall, primarily because of that facility fee. So liability insurance is up just slightly. And so this is generally an annual insurance rate adjustment. We're really excited that it's only $3,300. That is because our loss history is really good. In 2023 or 2024, we had, so they look at our previous 5 years. And we had a big loss come off the books with WCIA, with our insurer, in 23 for the 24 year. And so we had some adjustment there that went down. And then this rate increase was only, part of it was 2%, part of it was 1%. And that's much lower than most cities are experiencing, and that's because of our loss history. Legal services, we just adjusted up a bit based on what we've used this year. We had brought that way down. That total budget for legal services had been up above $200,000, but we weren't using that, and so we brought that down. And then the facility fee and the city, and so this is just based on, as we've readjusted where people are and who's using what spaces, we've just readjusted what's getting charged where on the facility fee. City clerk. Elections is up just because we have a general election this year. That gets charged to us in the following budget year. Communications is up because we'll do our community survey in 2026. And then copier services down just due to an adjustment we've made with how we're approaching our replacing our copiers.
Sorry, I'm dying to know, what adjustment to how we use the copier is saving us almost $1,600?
So it's actually going down overall so you'll see that line in a couple of places. It's actually going down from about $25,000 to about $10,000 overall. And it's just making adjustments to our agreements where we don't use so much paper as we used to use. And so having the agreements in place that we had was costing us a lot of money. And then we were collecting money to replace in a way that we don't need to collect. And so it's really just an adjustment in how we're approaching it. It's not an actual huge savings, we're just budgeting more appropriately for it.
And I'll just supplement that with the copier services works similar to the equipment rental fees. So if you recall last year, we did a big adjustment on that. And so really it was just looking at the history of what the copiers are actually costing us then versus now and what future replacement is going to be. And we were able to see that we could bring that, the amount that we're setting aside every year, we could bring that way down.
That's a good question because you're going to see that a couple of times.
Question for you, city manager.
Yep.
So, city clerk printed me out the hard copy because I'm old fashioned, but the major changes listed in that column that are major changes, they're not currently reflected. These are what you're going to be in the memos that you're talking about?
No, these are the actual changes from the 2025 budget to the 2026 budget.
Doesn't match what I'm looking at in the book. So something I'll talk to you about later, I suppose.
Yeah. So what doesn't match the book?
Well, I'm just, for example, elections.
Right.
So in 26, 2026 budgeted, it still says 60,000 and it's a decrease of 12%. But you're saying we're going to have an increase of $13,000 that's not reflected in here. So I'm just curious, you know.
Well, maybe I meant to put a negative on that. I'll have to look. I could have got that one wrong.
Okay,
But the budget is 60%. I mean, the budget is $60,000. That part's right.
it's the same for communications, the next line down. I don't see the 17,500 in here.
So but it's $21,500, correct?
It is.
Yeah, so looking on page 87, the communications line, the third line down, it would be the first, second, third column is the 25 amended budget, and that's $4,000. And then the next column over would be the 2026 preliminary budget number, which is the 21,500.
Okay, well, I see that number.
Do you see
yeah.
that one? Okay.
Yeah, the elections one doesn't match, that's all, that's
Yeah,
what
I
caught
see
my
that.
eye.
Yeah, the 60,000 is correct. The difference is different, but,
Okay,
okay, thank you.
yes. Can you go back over that, the survey, right? So the survey was is 17,500 for
Right.
the survey?
Right.
Wow.
It's usually, I think the last time we did it was, so that's just the increase in the budget.
Understand.
Just because in the current year, we left some in that line for whatever might come up.
Okay.
We usually just budget for the survey. And the survey last year, I think, or in 24, the survey was 20,000 something. Or 19.5, something like that. For the community survey.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the city activities. So activities now is a reduction for $24,500. Would you please explain about that?
Yeah, so, again, I think I did the plus and minus wrong on that one. Because the main change in the city activities budget, we just hadn't gotten there. The salary, the main change there is just the change with the events and rec coordinator going from 32 hours to
40 hours?
to 40 hours. And I really didn't change my colors on that, did I?
Okay.
That's why we gave you the page numbers. All right. Ready to keep going? So finance, with the state auditor, that's down, just bringing our audit costs back to normal. For a couple of years, they've either been off where they've been late, so that they were doing, in a previous year, they only did part of the audit, and then the next year they had to do 2 years worth of an audit or a year and a half worth of an audit. And so in the current year, it was really high. And so that just brings it back to normal. Like we talked about with the revenue on the miscellaneous line in the finance fund, just bringing that down based on trends, and that matches the revenue line item. And then the facility fee is up, again, just based on readjusted spaces in City Hall. Overall facility fees are down, but what each fund carries is some are up and some are down, just based on how we've changed who's using what spaces. In IT, the main line item in IT is the repairs and maintenance line. That's where all of our software and our IT contract costs are. And those are just based on annual increases with our softwares. We've done a lot over the last couple of years to minimize that impact, where we've gotten rid of a lot of things that we just either were redundant or we didn't need. For example, last year we got rid of our public records software simply because we don't have the volume of public records that needs an $11,000 software. And so while the increase is about $8,000, we've minimized that as much as we can. I listed it, but nothing much to report on the building fund. It's up $99, and that's just rounding. With the planning fund, primarily the only change there is with the facility fee coming way down. Again, like we've talked about, just based on spaces we're using. And then in the engineering fund, the main change there is King County Services. And that's basically what we pay for bridge inspections, and they only do bridge inspections in odd years. And so it's in the budget this year because they did bridge inspections. We'll take it out of the budget next year because they won't. With parks maintenance, we've increased professional services, adding the potential for a walk shed consultant since we put that in the comp plan. We've changed our parks level of service to a walk shed, and we'll be required to report on that. And then the main change in the parks maintenance fund is in repairs and maintenance. And the biggest part of that is we added $50,000 for hazard tree removal. Any questions? Okay. The last one is public safety. And so the top one there is the police contract, about a 6.5% increase. That's about $200,000. I do have to just comment briefly as a kudos to Director Chambers. So our estimate is within $4,000 of our actual that we just received today from King County Sheriff's Office. And so the one that goes with that is the police reconciliation line item. And so it's, we were budgeting $250,000 as a reimbursement. So the line item is actually negative because we get a reimbursement, but we have to charge it to that line item. And so it was a reimbursement of $250,000. I think we're trying to remain conservative with just putting it at $450,000, or at negative $450,000, but it's a $200,000 change. And so with being down 2 officers instead of 1, the reconciliation reimbursement will be much higher. And then again with the facility fee, the one for public safety is up just because of the space that they use in comparison to everyone else. The fire contract was a little over an 11% increase, or about $337,000. And then we increased the Issaquah jail line item just based on trends that we pay to play for our jail contracts, and so if we're taking more people to jail, we'll pay more. If we're taking less people to jail, we'll pay less. That is the general fund.
So I'm looking at my book here, and just an odd one steps out to me here. Animal control, 30% increase. Is that because we anticipate capturing more animals? What's the deal?
So that's based on what we have received, and so we have to regardless of what we budget, we have to reconcile that each year. And so that's just increasing it to be more in line with what's actually coming in lately.
Yes, so the last 2 years, we've been at 20,300 for 2024. 2025 total was even more than that. So we brought it, we'd been holding it steady around 15,000, which has proven to be way too low. And so it does look like a significant shift because we brought it up to 20,000. But the reality is, depending on how much licensing revenue we get, it may end up being a little bit more than 20,000 even.
Okay, we have any other questions for the city manager? Any at all? Okay.
I got 2 more funds if we can keep going.
Oh, we're still going. Okay.
These ones are much shorter. So if we can buzz through it, if we can get through operating fund, that's huge for us then for the next meeting. So the next one is street fund. Again, just laying out the main revenue sources there at the top, but the major changes there at the bottom. So like we've talked about, the motor vehicle fuel tax continues to come down, and that trend we imagine will continue until the legislature makes some kind of an adjustment to how motor vehicle fuel tax is used or executed or whatever they want to do. But I would imagine we'll continue to see electric and fuel efficient vehicles be used more and more, and that will reduce what we get from fuel tax. The waste management fee increases based on the formula in the contract, which is the CPI plus some other factors, and so that's up based on the contract. Investment interest we brought down slightly. Really the adjustments primarily in investment interest is just because it's based on each fund's share of our fund balance. And so we allocate investment interest to each fund based on its percentage of our total fund balance. And then the transfer in is up, and that's just to keep the street fund whole. And so the street fund over under is like $800. Questions on revenue?
And then I'll just add again, when it comes to the transfer, what we're doing is we're doing that monthly. So whatever deficit the street fund has each month, depending on the revenues and expenditures for that month, we're making that transfer from general fund. So it's only what we need. We're not, so we may, if the street fund doesn't spend everything next year, we won't need to transfer the full $597,000. It's just, that's the maximum that we would bring in from general fund to supplement.
And I will, this is a good time to just comment briefly on REIT flexibility. I think the council is primarily aware, but for the public's benefit, in the legislature this year, they changed what REIT can be used for. And so that gives us the flexibility to use REIT for street maintenance, as well as for affordable housing. We primarily use REIT for transportation projects and a little bit for parks projects. Something I don't think we need to use REIT for the street fund this year because the general fund is whole, even with that transfer. But that's something that the council will need to wrestle with as we move forward as far as how you want to utilize REIT for the street fund.
And what does REIT stand for?
I'm sorry, real estate excise tax. Thank you. And then on the expenditure side, this is something you'll see in each fund as well. Each salary-bearing fund, salary and benefits generally are down, but that's primarily because of the reduction in the employer PERS rate. So you're going to hear that over and over, reduction in the employer PERS rate. With maintenance and repair supplies, that's up slightly, really just based on what we're seeing supply costs at and what we're using, what we're using for. Professional services up specific to a couple of ads this year. So $4,000 to add WeatherNet weather stations. That just helps us know. So there's a lot of different kinds of weather all over the city of Newcastle, whether you're down on 76th or you're up in the reserve, and those will allow us to know what the weather is like around town. That will help us with snow. And then the other one is $6,000, which will allow us to add monitoring to our snowplows and vehicles. We had a question at a town hall, it might have been last year. I don't think it was earlier this year. But asking about, people call all the time wanting to know where the plows are or when they might get to them, and that will help us be a little better about answering that question, where right now we can't answer that question at all. For roadway maintenance services, this is our contract with King County Roads, and so moving that cost just based on trends and what we use. Really that cost can ebb and flow a bit, but it's certainly trended higher over the last couple of years. Repair and maintenance is up. Again, this is an item that tends to ebb and flow based on the need. We had brought it way down in 2025. We're kind of pushing it back up to where it was in 2026. And then a slight increase in interfund service charge. Again, that's based on the formula. Questions for the street fund?
I have to ask. it's a tracker for the snowplows, $6,000. Can you explain how that works?
So primarily that it will be for install. And then there'll be a slight ongoing monitoring cost, but it just allows us to know where the street plows are.
So because, forgive me, I don't understand this issue, but it's good to understand. So I got a tracker on my son and daughter called a cell phone, so I know where they are at all times, right? So what is, it's actually on the truck, it's a system that you'd add to the truck, so, okay. And it's $6,000, okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Surface Water Management Fund. This one's pretty boring. I apologize for that. Not a lot of changes. The main revenue sources are grants, utility fees, and interest. There's a couple of others in there that are common as far as the grants go, but grants are way down, and that's just project specific. And so when we get grants, we use them for projects, and when we have smaller projects, the grant totals are lower. This year, so the previous surface water utility analysis recommended a 3% increase each year in the swim fee through 2029. The city council at that time had approved an initial increase and then a 3% increase through 2025. So the preliminary budget in the swim fund assumes a 3% increase, but that's something that the council will actually have to execute in order to keep that. And then investment interest was way up, again, applied based on fund balance. So we're excited to see that increase. On the expenditure side, again, salary benefits are down. Part of that is based on the employer PERS rate reduction. Another chunk of that is that's where a chunk of the public works director salary goes. And so assuming not a much smaller salary, but a smaller salary for the public works director not being maxed out is part of that savings as well. Maintenance and repair supplies up a lot, but that'll be one-time purchases. We're due for new storm filters, and so those are something that we pay for in the 5 to 7 year range. Professional services also for specific things. Part of that is our updated MPDS. I'm not gonna, National Pollutant Discharge, something, elimination system, thank you. I couldn't get it at the town hall. I couldn't get the E at the town hall. So in the current year, we're required to update every so often. And there's always updated requirements. Well, one of the heavy requirements in our current update is 71 new storm drains, new storm inspections. And so part of that is for help getting those up and going. And then we're due for a new swim fee study. And so those are increases, but one-time increases. Repair and maintenance is up, again, primarily due to increase for hazard tree removal. So hazard tree removal appears in several different places, and it just depends on where those trees are being taken out of. If they're being taken out of a right-of-way, it's going to come from the street fund. If it's being taken out of a park, it's going to come out of the general fund. If it's being taken out of a swim pond, then it's going to come from the swim fund. Again, like we've talked about, interfund service charges is just increased based on that formula. And then the transfer out is decreased just based on our transportation improvement projects that are planned. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So there's a $70,000 expenditure increase, and it just says supplies. And if you go down into the detail, there's a $63,000 increase, and all it says is maintenance and repair supplies. Can we get some more detail on that? I mean, that's
on the 63.
The 63,000.
Yeah, that's the storm filters.
That's 63, so that's replacing all of them in the city, or how's that?
There's a specific number. I don't have it right off the top of my head. I can send it out.
How often is that done?
That's done in, it depends on how long they last, but generally that's done in like the 5 to 7 year range.
Okay, so that's, all right, so that's what that is. And over, and the next one here, I see a, where is it? So can you explain the swim fee study? What are we studying? Explain that. in more
So,
detail.
so they look at our total swim fee budget and projected future costs and what we need, what our swim utility fee needs to be over the next so many years. And then the state requires us to update that study every 5 years.
It's not something we can do in-house with our, no?
No,
Okay,
it's not something that we recommend we do in-house because if that gets challenged, we don't have expertise in-house to throw at that challenge. We need somebody that is an expert in doing those analyses.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the last slide is just the swim capital. I know we're doing operating funds, but swim is our only fund where we get both. And so, and it's fairly brief. The Newport Hills Railroad embankment, that's just finishing up engineering for that project. Like we've reported before, we never anticipated actually constructing that project. We were required to get through final design with an agreement with the tribes, but we ended up getting grant funding for all of it, and so I guess we are going to do that project. And then $160,000 for our pond restoration program. That's an annual program. The same with storm conveyance rehab. That's something that we work through each year. And then S40 is the 1/16th flow control facilities, and that'll just be the engineering for that project that then will be constructed in 2027.
Okay, so now you're looking for questions.
I'm looking for any
Right,
questions
yeah.
or
Any questions
You
at
can-
all for the city manager
you
on,
can talk
Any of
through
the
things
funds?
as you want.
go ahead, Councilman Sherlock.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for putting this together. When I first started the council, this is not how we got the information, and I find it personally very helpful. So I really appreciate your effort and all the staff's effort to help us understand differences from year to year. So, we'll still do the work of diving in, but this is really helps us with a good jumping off point. So I appreciate it.
Okay,
So if just briefly, so like we talked about earlier, as we get updated numbers specifically on new construction property tax, that's one that will change for sure. We'll get those updates in front of the council, and we'll put out a memo for the next study session. For the next one, we'll do all the rest of the funds, which would be capital project funds and our internal service funds. So transportation capital, parks capital, IRF, facilities. Go from there.
so I assume you, because I'm sure I'm going to have questions and I'm going to email you, you would encourage questions or,
Yep.
from the council on specific
Absolutely.
items, and then we
Yep.
can discuss that at the next study session?
Yep, so anything that you ask, I'll provide you an answer immediately, but I'll include those questions in the memo
Okay,
that we put out.
all right. Go ahead.
Thank you. So you did mention this for the swim fund that we will need to vote on the 3% potential increase for the fees.
Mhm.
Is that just something that's part of the budget process that staff will bring forward, or is that something that we need to?
So my preference would be to adopt a budget And if we adopt a budget with the 3% in there, then we'll bring the council an ordinance to increase the rate.
Okay.
If we're not going to increase the rate, I hope that we'll adopt a budget that doesn't reflect that increase, so that then we won't bring a rate increase to the council.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that concludes our general business. Moving on to additional public comment. City Clerk, do we have anybody? Okay, a reminder about public comment that I'll call your name to come on up to the microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes. Please state your name and neighborhood, and then when the buzzer sounds, we ask you to wrap it up. Okay, first up is Claudia Hershey. Come on up. No, okay, pass. Hemant Tanwar, and if I said that wrong, I'm sorry. Hemant? Pardon me? Yes, there is later on the list. So go ahead then, we'll skip ahead to you.
Okay. I live in city nearby, not in Newcastle, but I consider myself a member of this community as well.
And you're a new, right? That's you?
No, Anu is her.
Okay, I'm sorry.
My name is Hemant Tanwar, and I live in
My
Renton
apologies.
Highlands, very
All
near
right.
to the city.
Okay.
I came here to thank you, Council, for the Hindu Heritage Month declaration, and I want to share one experience with all of you, which represent our value. One of the things we have been taught is that there's a saying called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, means the whole world is one family, and we follow that value here with our kids who are born here. All throughout the King County, there are around 25 to 30 students who and their families cook food for 5 shelters from all the way from north to all the way in the Auburn, different shelters. This shelter involved Portslet Center right near the East Gate area. There's a youth shelter in Kirkland, where youths are who don't have home, they live there. We cook food for them, which is nutrition food. Similarly, women's shelter in Bellevue and Kirkland. So these are done by all the families because of the value and belief system we have. One of the reasons is that we want our students to grow and understand the pain. So when they go and out do work in different governments and different departments, they can implement right policies. And so in order to do that, they need to really understand where they are growing, what are the pain points. And so hunger is one thing, and homelessness is one thing we are trying to exposing our kids. So almost 250 meals are cooked every Sunday and being delivered by people from last 7 years. Okay. One of the other things is students are involved in senior center. They teach their values like yoga and breathing, so that you can bring relaxation in your mind. They bring them better health and memory exercises, which will improve their brain activities. And so these are the seniors who are in shelters, and probably they have different kind of old age diseases there. So with all that, I really want to thank that we appreciate the opportunity given and the recognition given, and we would like to extend any other activity which students can be involved in the city of Newcastle, because we have many families who live here, and we want to involve them in community service. So please let us know how we can help. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Louise Cassell. I'm sorry, what? I'm just going in order on the list.
I think it's all. Thanks. I also just wanted to, I didn't get a chance to thank our city staff at the town hall. I kind of focused on other members, but I just really wanted to acknowledge our amazing city staff and how you are always responsive to requests, particularly Scott Pingle. Thank you for all of your responses to my recent emails. So I'm specifically here, I want to talk a little bit more about the town hall. As many other Newcastle residents, I was concerned when I learned that during the last 5 minutes of the 8/19/25 Newcastle City Council meeting, that Mayor Clark unexpectedly put up for council vote a proposal to council Newcastle City Fall Town Hall that had already been scheduled, and Risnad Middle School had already been reserved to host on 9/30/25. If the cancellation of a semi-annual public meeting with the people the mayor and the city council work for wasn't enough cause for alarm, the justification provided by Mayor Clark that he was, quote, concerned the town hall won't have any value, to be honest, ... because we know what happens at town halls. Again, continuing with quote, it was all just an attack on council member Tallman, and again, because of what we had experienced at past town halls. This led me to do some research on this matter to understand how we arrived at this point. We can go back to November of 2023 when then council members Clark and Lacotia co-signed an email that I received unexpectedly, encouraging me to vote for former council member Steve Tallman. Following the November 2023 election, new city council members were sworn in January of 2024, including Steve Tallman, after which newly appointed Mayor Clark and former council member Tallman moved very quickly to further their shared agenda to extend activities Tallman had been previously involved in for many years into a formal public safety citizens advisory group. To that effect, a public safety meeting was scheduled and announced on Newcastle City website. I'm not going to go into the description here, but in no way, shape, or form did any of the announcements that were made publicly on any of the city website or on the city's Facebook page specifically say that the committee was being formed, or did it specifically encourage people who were interested in being in the committee and trying and wanting to apply to actually attend. The next formal announcement about this committee came on June 4th of 2024, where this committee was formally introduced. The following day after the committee was formally announced, a member of that committee shot and killed a 17-year-old high school student in broad daylight.
Thank you, Louise. We ask you to wrap it up, please.
I could continue and go on and on because there's a lot more that has gone forth. But I think what this comes down to is the fact that we had a town hall that was almost canceled because our mayor did not want to answer difficult questions. We can never have that happening in the city of Newcastle again.
Next up is Jennifer McAleer. Jennifer.
Hey there, Jen McAleer, China Creek. And I wanted to bring a question that I was going to ask at the town hall, but unfortunately, Council Member Quigg wasn't available at that time. I hope you're feeling better. But I did want to bring it here so that I at least could get it out there. I know you can't respond directly, but maybe an email when you can, letting me know what your thoughts are about it. So at the May town hall, so a few months ago, when you were asked a question and you explained your vote against the resolution to fly the pride flag annually without requiring future votes, you shared your personal connection to the LGBTQ community through your cousin Charlie and emphasized that your vote wasn't rooted in animus. However, at that point, you also said, for some people, I think it's clear, it's obvious, it should be a perennial thing like slavery. And I'm not actually sure what you meant by saying slavery should be a perennial thing, but comparing the pride flag, a symbol of inclusion and visibility, to slavery is deeply offensive. I hope you can understand how that analogy could be harmful, and I sincerely hope you regret using the language. Newcastle deserves better from our council members, and I encourage you to choose your words more carefully in the future. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Anu Iyer. Hope I said that right.
Respected Mayor and council members, I represent the Hindu American community of the city of Newcastle. I express gratitude for the proclamation recognizing October as Hindu Heritage Month. This acknowledgement honors Hinduism as one of the world's oldest traditions, emphasizing values like peace, acceptance, and respect for all beings. As Hemant mentioned, I highlight the Hindu philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, the world is one family, which unites people across cultures and faiths. Respected Mayor and City Council, thank you for issuing the proclamation during the Hindu festive season and sending a meaningful message to the Hindu American community. The growth of Hindu Americans in the region and their contributions to public life are acknowledged with pride. We celebrate Seva Diwali during this month in 2024. As Hemant mentioned, we donated 700,000 pounds of food nationwide to local food banks and shelters. Once again, thank you for recognizing October as Hindu Heritage Month. Namaste.
Thank you. Next up is Chinmay Nagarkar. I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correctly.
My name is Chinmay, and I'm running for something, so I will not give my address. I live close by over here. I wanted to use this opportunity of Hindu Heritage Month to provide a little bit of depth, because this is always a good opportunity to reflect on whether we are just talking about an alien thing in America, or is there something deeper, a deeper connection? And I wanted to point some of those out, and then you can explore more later on. If I were to pick one sentence that the founders of America said about the basic philosophy of the Republic, I would pick Thomas Jefferson when he said that the God who gave us life gave us liberty. And this means that life and liberty are two sides of the same coin. When the warrior prince Arjun in the epic Mahabharata, which you might have heard of, was in two minds about whether to fight his own cousins on the battlefield, he wanted the Godhead representative, Sri Krishna, to tell him what to do. And he said to him, Sri Krishna said to him, I gave you life, now do as you wish. He said exactly the same thing. And Thomas Jefferson said exactly the same thing, that liberty and life are two sides of the same coin. And when you make good choices, you make your own world. And this is the foundational idea that is aligned, that results in the respected Hindu community members over here doing what they do and how they behave in the community as good citizens. I want to just leave you guys with one thing. Not Thomas Jefferson, I think it was George Washington who said in the, I think the first address, inaugural address, that the American experiment, the American Republic is a solemn experiment that has been placed in the hands of the American people. And in order to fulfill this experiment or have a successful experiment, one of the principles of the dharmic systems that come from India is that civic leaders act with what is known as action without expectation, nishkama karma. That is karma, action without any desire. And I think that this city council, sitting at 9 o'clock over here and patiently going through all these comments, represents that selfless action. And I want to thank you for being here and taking this responsibility and taking this selfless action, and in this way, giving us your blessings as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk, do we have anybody online? Okay. That concludes the second public comment. On to planning calendar. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things for the next meeting. We will have an Arbor Day proclamation. We talked about it a bit last year, but we are a Tree City USA, and getting an Arbor Day proclamation done is part of those requirements. And being a Tree City USA does help us get grants here and there. And we have a few consent items. We'll have an appointment to the CAC Commission reappointments in general, And then project acceptance for Waterline Trail. We just have the one general business item, and so I'm going to assume that the council wants to move the budget study session to general business rather than starting early. Okay. I'll take any questions.
Questions on the planning calendar? Okay. Thank you, everybody. That concludes our meeting. Have a good evening.